Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connection, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Back to Basics. My guest today is Janine Regan Sinclair. She's an international therapist, healer, author, and speaker with over 20 years' experience. Known as the consciousness architect, she has the ability to access all areas of your consciousness in order to help you release problematic programs, patterns, and memories created by past experiences. Her area of expertise is emotional and mental trauma repair, whether formed this life or via intergenerational trauma. She has created online programs to help people across the globe with issues related to PTSD, mental health, addiction, and more. Janine is also a published author. She's written 5 books and created an array of self-help audios and online courses to help you heal and evolve. Hello, Janine, and welcome to Back to Basics.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm very excited. Everything sounds really interesting because I think that healing is something we all need one way or the other. And so to have somebody that specializes in that, it's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. We do need it. People don't realize, they think healing, like you need to be sick to have healing. They don't really understand in general that it means to become whole again.
I love that.
Being sick and the importance of healing ourselves, because what we've got in our systems is what's creating our reality. It's called the law of projection.
That's beautiful. So before we get into the law of projection, which I'm sure I'm going to ask about, I always ask about Janine, the young Janine, and your origin story, and a little bit if this is something that from a very early stage in your life you kind of knew you were going to get into. You had how did you evolve into now, who you are today?
Okay, so I was the youngest of 5. Most of my family are gone now. I went into architecture when I was 17 and stayed in architecture for 20 years or thereabouts, until that's when I lost my father, and that's when I needed some healing. I'd gone into kind of shock that didn't really go away, and I went for some energy healing with a friend of mine, having been hospitalized for 2 weeks because my digestive system had broken down with the trauma. And basically my stomach was inflamed. Energetically, I don't know if you've ever seen that old movie with Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn, Death Becomes Her, where she shoots her in the stomach and she's got a hole in her stomach.
Yeah.
Energetically, I looked like I had a hole in my stomach, because like I'd been punched in the stomach, and that was the shock of the death. I was very close to my father, and a lot of PTSD symptoms, but nobody picked up on it. And all the doctors wanted to give me was sleeping tablets and Prozac, which is, antidepressants, and I didn't want to take that. So I went down the holistic route because I had a friend who was an energy healer, and I felt so much better after just one session that I thought, I'm going to learn how to do this. This just feels like it was meant to be. And when I went to learn, everyone in the class had hot hands and I had cold hands. So I was thinking, what's wrong with my hands? The thing was, I was channeling different energy. I'm going back 2000 and just after the millennium it was. I was channeling diamond energy back then, which was quite, an unusual higher frequency 20 years ago. So that's why my hands felt cold. So I'd gone from architecture into energy healing, and then I went back to night school and I studied hypnotherapy, counseling, and psychology. And then I created my own healing system then, using all of these different techniques. I'd heard that the kung fu artists, martial artists, were the result of their masters telling them to go to the north, south, east, and west of the globe and getting the best martial arts they could and creating something with all the best bits. And I feel that's what I've done. I've taken all the best bits of, certain modalities, and I have done a lot of other courses as well, though not to full practitioner level, like craniosacral therapy and kinesiology. I've dabbled in that, and flower formulas and things like that. So, and that's how I ended up, doing this full time, and I've written my books and made self-help audios because I bumped into an ex-US Marine when I was in New York, probably about 9 years ago now, maybe, can't remember. Between, I would say, 7 and 10 years ago. Anyway, it was a good while back. And he asked me, he needed some help, so I gave him some help. And he asked me if I could make it into audios. And I said, I can try. And that's where the audio inspiration came from. So that people can, work with them on themselves. And, they've got something on their phone that they can just go to when they need it. And one of the biggest problems with PTSD and things like that is soul fragmentation. It's like when people go through a shock, they become numb. And what's happened is their emotional self, the body's layers of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, their emotional self is like beside themselves. That's where that saying, I was beside myself, came from. And they go numb because there's a part of them is like stepped out because it's in shock. And that soul fragment is critical to people becoming well again. And more often than not, they're left floating around in the ethers of space for years and years and years, and people don't get these pieces of them back, and that's why they're not recovering fully, because they've still, they're still fragmented. It's like the energetic bodies are broken into different pieces.
That's so interesting. I'm really interested in all this conversation because and this is the beauty of it. So you had, like, let's call it traditional. You went into architecture, you went in, and then you face a shock that really most people will face, like losing a family member, a friend, somebody that it's really, really close to you, and you don't know how to. I mean, we go into shock. I mean, as you had said it. So the one sure thing we all have is probably we're gonna face that shock at some point, and that's the beauty of people like you, taking curiosity, in my view, to like going deeper into it, because we, in my opinion, sometimes we see the worlds like separate. Or these are the people that believe in the energy and all this other stuff, and these are the people like, let's call it normal. And I'm always like in between. I like to understand all these things. So take the opportunity, having you as a guest, to share a little bit more about how much of that energetic world did you know, or what did you discover? And I'm sure we're all going to buy your books, but it was something that it was also, as you learn, like you discover more, or you were already very attuned with this part of spirit energy and the human realm?
Yeah, well, I was a clairvoyant child. So even as a little girl, I used to be able to see fairies and elves in the garden, and I would play with them and stuff like that. I got to about 11 years old and went to what in America they say middle school. We call it secondary school in the UK. And that's when I started to realize that I was a little bit different, and kind of shut it down, stopped talking about it. I did have a good friend in school who could see ghosts, so her and I would have conversations between, the two of us. She was my best friend throughout school, and that was just, it was there till I was about 11, and it didn't actually come back until my dad passed away. So I put that to one side. But I've always been a believer, that there's more than this solid world, and that there's angels and extraterrestrials and all these other, energetic beings that we can't see until we're tuned into their frequency. So I've always been a believer because it was there my whole childhood.
Interesting. So, but if you find somebody that's not a believer, or somebody that like just recently say, well, I believe when we are in this world, we die, that's it. There's no energy, no spirit, no, like we have many names for it, right? What do you think it's like something you would share like to anybody, like about energy? Like, do you have like a 101 of energy that you've nurtured in your journey that you could
What,
share?
to try and help them understand, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I would get people to rub their hands together and get the energy flowing through their hands, and then like bring their hands together, and they start to like about there, it's cooler. So because I stimulated the chakras in my palms, you know, they've opened up, and you can feel it's very subtle, but you can feel the difference. The air feels warmer here and it feels cooler here. So, you know, I try to get people to do that. Or there is a great guided meditation that I do with people, which is asking them to keep their eyes closed, and I do breathing with them and just let go of all of their layers of the body, let go of the physical, let go of the muscles and the skeletal system and everything else, until they're left with the heart, and then let go, you know, with the heart, and they're left with a spark like a star, and that's the soul. And I've done this in live demonstrations before, and people are shocked, because when they get into that, and it doesn't take long, you know, it's 15-minute, 20-minute meditation. When they get to that space and they can feel it, it's like, oh, wow, you know, there's a change in perception. But generally, to be honest, I don't really get many people that come to me that are totally skeptic. I think most human beings have had some kind of, you know, unless you're living in the jungle somewhere, some kind of thing with a phone where you're thinking about a friend and they could phone you or stuff like that. That's an energetic connection. You know,
Yeah.
that's a telepathic connection happening.
Yes.
And we've all had things like that. We've all had things like you know, we feel we've been here before, some kind of deja vu feeling, or and things like that. They're, you know, they're very common as well with people. So generally, I don't come along many like total skeptics, and my consciousness, my mind is very open. You know, to the point where mind blowing some of the things I've shared with people before on YouTube and my Instagram. But yeah, it's not something that I have a problem with.
Great. And so you know, and we of course are gonna share all your links and your webpage, but you know, I obviously do a little research before every interview. And so one of the things I say that your goal is to help people gently release stress and trauma memories. And in your experience, like, what is that in working with you? Like, let's say I love Janine. I heard the interview, but you know, I really have a lot of stress memories or trauma memories, and I'm sure that we all have them. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious about if you can share common, you know, stress memories or those traumas that maybe had an impact bigger than what we think. And we think of like, I don't need this, but in reality, probably we all do.
Yeah, well, in reality, we all do. If you think about the day you're born, it's the most traumatic thing, you know, you're going to go through in those early years. For one, women should be upright to give birth, so that gravity helps us. We're taken into hospital, we're lying on our back, so the babies are taking longer to try and move sideways. That's trauma. And that's been linked to ADD and ADHD and autistic spectrum disorders now, because of the, you know, the depletion of the oxygen in the birth canal. So when we do eventually, you know, separate from our mothers, somebody picks us up and slaps us, you know, that's trauma. So we come into the world very traumatically, and they're now linking that to that affects the central nervous system. And there's certain techniques. I did 4 YouTube videos about this, birth trauma, and that can leave us with autistic spectrum disorders, ADD, anxiety, all kinds of nervous disorders, because it affects the central nervous system. So this is all the kind of stuff that can be reset, and you can go through rebirthing processes that are much easier for people. So you're taking out the old birthing memories from the system, because everything's stored in our cell memory. And when we get older, you know, this is, you see older people, they've got hip problems and knee problems and back problems, and aches and pains in their body. Some of it's dietary, but some of it is an accumulation of emotional and mental toxicity from trauma that they haven't dealt with. You know, people think being brave, someone passes away, be brave, don't cry. Or, you know, God, creator, I call it one, gave us tear ducts for a reason, to release emotional trauma. So the worst thing you can say to somebody is don't cry if they need to cry. Now, people need to cry more. They need to, you know, let it out of their system. And this is the problem. And if it's left for years and decades, that's when disease comes in to the body, because it could, one cell goes bad because of it. And then that cell starts to accumulate and attract. One negative attracts negative, like attracts like. And, you know, then you're, before you know it, you're into diseases, you're into tumors growing in the body and all sorts of stuff. So people need to understand that we are mind, body and soul and spirit. Years ago, they were treating the body, and then it became trendy to bring in mind-body connection. But they're still not embracing the fact that we're a spirit with a mind in a body. And all of it needs to be brought into balance. It's not just fixing the physical, because the emotional body has still got those memories. So, for example, when we have an injury, let's say we break our arm, and the arm's facing the wrong way. So the doctor fixes the arm, puts it back this way, but your energy arm is still over there. This is why we need energy healing after we've had a physical injury as well, or an operation, because when we're being cut into, we're cutting into the energy field. We're cutting into the meridians on an energetic level. You know, all of these things are affecting. This is why it takes longer to heal, because the physical arm is in the right place, but the energetic arm is still sticking up over there somewhere. So that needs to be realigned and brought back into position. And, you know, my goal is to get people to understand that healing isn't just about sickness. Healing is about self-care, self-love, you know, preventative medicine as well. And it's not just about health, it's about relationships, it's about what you believe about yourself, your belief systems, what you believe about your career, you know, your ancestral stuff. Is proven fact now that PTSD is passed down through the DNA. So people have got ancestral, intergenerational trauma. If you look back what our ancestors were doing in the last few hundred years, they were barbaric, all of them. We've got all of those memories in our system, and then we look and we, you know, I don't watch the news, but I hear what's going on. And these things, you know, because of the law of projection, what we, as within, so without, this is the saying, these things start to manifest in the world. We're living in a world full of mental health problems and trauma and addiction and fear and anxiety. And, you know, it's because there's so much of it in humanity being projected into the world. It's toxic, it's toxicity, and it's poisoning the planet, it's poisoning the oceans, it's poisoning the earth, it's poisoning our food, it's poisoning the air and our water supply. And it's all a projection of our own toxicity. So we have to take responsibility for it. And I'm not saying this from a judgmental point of view, it's an educational point of view. People are not putting this and this together. You know, we're here to heal so that we can create the new world. And that's the projection of the healed us, not the old us. If we don't heal ourselves en masse, our reality as a collective is going to be negative because of the toxicity in us. You know, if we've got greed and fear and materialism and all these things, that's what the world is projecting, you know, projecting back, mirroring back to us all of these problems. So refining ourselves is refining the whole world. It's affecting everyone. Everything we do to ourselves affects the whole world.
Yeah, social consciousness. I'm big on that, and I don't understand why we're struggling in this time, especially because I don't know if you agree, but I think the pandemic, as traumatic as it was like almost like the nudge from the universe. Like we came together as species fighting to healing together out of this, horrible pandemic. And for a moment in time, the conversations got deeper. The effort,
Yeah.
the intention of everybody around you got very intentional into what we are talking right now. But now it's almost like with the same intention, it's almost like reversed to a point, almost with a vengeance. We are going to worse than pre-pandemic awareness, I believe. What you're feeling on that front?
Well, that one was, I mean, I knew from day one what was going on, that it was, false. And I knew it was coming. I just didn't realize it would be in that form. And it was done to separate and control. We know there was a dark agenda behind it. But what's the problem is now is mainstream media is saying that social media is giving out fake news when really it's the other way around. And there's all this false information out there. And all of it could have been solved with things like ivermectin. That was helping people. So there was a massive dark agenda behind all of that. And I tried to stay away from it. I didn't buy into it at all. But even that trauma has separated families, separated partners, separated children from their parents. All of that was going on through the pandemic. More alcoholism and drug addiction when people were on lockdown, more domestic violence, all of that kind of stuff increased. And the earth is going through these changes at the moment. The earth is, we've been given an opportunity to raise our frequency and create a better world. And there are people out there that don't want that to happen because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And how do we, since you mentioned it, how do we raise our frequency? What do we have to do?
Okay, well, first of all, I've got two YouTube videos. I've got 30 ways to level up for free on there. Okay, people go to the YouTube channel. So all sorts of things can help. So first of all, eating better, cutting out things, not too much, or cutting out bread, sugar, dairy, that they lower your frequency. Coffee lowers your frequency as well. Alcohol, cigarettes, they all lower your frequency. It's common sense there. But things like laughter, dancing, being in nature, walking on the beach, hanging out with the children raises your frequency, playing games, being with your dog, throwing, simple things that will bring you joy. All of those things raise your frequency. And then there's the healing side of it. So there's like looking into, your cell memory, the memories from the past, how you were brought up, your intergenerational trauma. All of that stuff's in your system. It's in your DNA. And what we've been told is junk DNA isn't junk DNA at all. It's a storage facility, and it's got all of this stuff in it. And it's also got a lot of good stuff in it that we've got skills from other lifetimes and things like that are in our DNA. So basically being happy, being healthy, taking care of yourself on all levels. So it's like feeding your body, feeding your mind, not too much watching junk on screens and heavy rock music and, stuff like that. Everything affects you. The clothes you wear, synthetic clothes, plastic clothes. There's a lot of them in shops these days, clothes made of plastics. They're rubbing against your skin and your skin's absorbing these microplastics. So things like cotton, linen, silk are the best things. Linen's the best that you can wear on your skin. Being careful what creams and shampoos and soaps and makeup and all of this kind of stuff, they all affect your frequency. Everything does. One of the most important things as well I've noticed in the last year with people is they're drinking a lot of water, but they're still feeling dehydrated. And the problem is we sweat salt, we pee salt, we cry salt, but they're filling themselves up with ordinary water. And you need the salt in your body to hold the water in your body. So pinch of salt, crystal, salt crystals, good quality, not table salt. It's got arsenic in it. I mean, it's got bad stuff in it. and putting a little bit of salt back into your body as well to keep you hydrated, because these energies are coming in from the sun. And if anyone's seen the sun lately, it's brilliant white light. It doesn't even look like a sun. It's just this big, white, bright light in the sky. That's source energy coming in. So that comes in through our energetic bodies, and it needs to go down through our body and be grounded. If we've got trauma in our body, negative memories, it doesn't need to be trauma. It can be hate, unforgiveness, grief, things like that, causes blockages. So the energy can't pass through, and it starts to push to try and get through the density of our bodies. And this is why we need to get this old stuff out, so that we can channel this energy, because we are like the little bits of information in a computer that's creating what's on the screen. So the more light that we can hold, the better the projection of the world around us.
That's really deep. I like that. And it must be true that energy is contagious, and people like, I've heard it many times where say this person doesn't have good energy. Like we pick on it, even if maybe not that consciously, or somebody that is not into this stuff. I say, oh, I don't know, I don't like the energy. Like there's people that go into your life, and maybe you have a lunch and they're good friends and people you love, but at the end of the lunch, you feel worse than what you came into it.
Yeah.
And if one learns to identify those things, I think it's very important as well, because this is like, in your terms, it's like, is your own energy being affected by the interaction with others.
Yeah, it's called energy draining, energy vampire. People do it a lot. Some people make a living doing it, feeding off other people. And that's another area. People need to understand that if somebody's feeding off your energy somewhere, there's something in the Eastern terminology they call the Akashic records, and it's basically our spiritual library of memories of everything we've ever done, everything we're doing, everything we will do. If somebody is draining your energy, usually there's something in your Akashic records from a previous life or earlier in this life where you've given them permission. Like, I'm always here for you if you need me. That's giving people permission to hook into your energy. So things like that need to be looked at as well. And I have a workshop to teach people how to go into their Akashic records, an online course, so that they can start taking care of their spiritual selves. Most people don't even think about their spiritual self. It's not just a spirit like a ghost wandering around. We're this huge, complex construct of the grids of light that are our energy bodies, and they hold information. And when the planets are in alignment, they download our karma through the alignment into our energy field for us to work on and release. And then we expand. Our energy gets reactivated. Our energy grid gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is, you can tell people with a big energy, they walk in the room, you can feel their presence.
Interesting.
So that's the process. But so when we're going through and we're healing and we're expanding and we're healing and we're expanding, the world outside starts to become lighter. You start to notice that the plants and the flowers and the trees have got more of an effervescence to them. They seem more opalescent and shiny than they were before. You might be walking down the street, or maybe when you buy your groceries, people seem smilier and happier, and will look you in the eye and say hi when they walk past, instead of being on their phones looking away. They don't want to make contact. So you start to see the world out around you changing. That's why we need a lot of us to do it, because it's a collective projection and a collective experience. And that's what is going on at the moment. This is what we're involved with the planetary changes, and what people will call in the end of the Mayan calendar, and all of this stuff. Is there's a lot of people on the planet like us at the moment that our sole purpose is to come and help people understand this, so that they can refine themselves and create a better world for not only them, their children, their family, their friends, they're animals. We're changing the world by changing ourselves.
I love that. And it's an exciting process once you embark on it, and because it's a discovery process as I see it. And so it's exciting. And well, I wasn't planning on asking this, but I'm compelled to ask because you know, with all the energy, I totally align with it. Where do you stand with God as a creative force, not the denominations of churches and all that? Do you believe in a higher creating power, call it God, or it's all energy that we kind of can tap into? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
well, I used to believe in God in that respect, that, you know, there was not, you know, white bearded kind of God, but many years ago when I was astral projecting, I met a being who I called God at the time. And he would look like a star and then a pyramid, and, you know, it was white opalescent. And then I said, can you just look like a white bearded man? It's easier for me to have conversation with that. And I called him Abba, which means father, because I didn't like the word God. It doesn't resonate with me. I stopped going to church when I was 13. And I meditated on it and going, right, what am I here to bring to the world? I'm here to bring to the world this information, but it needs to be universal. So I see everything as one. And that's what I call God, one. And that one is a field of supreme intelligent consciousness that we are a particle of. And so we are all a particle of that God creator one, as a little soul in, you know, spark, the essence within the spirit, which is the energy field within the physical body, having an experience in this reality that is actually like a virtual reality simulation on an energetic level that our consciousness projects for us so that we can experience and grow. We're here to grow. You know, this is what we're here to. We've had many, many lifetimes, and we've done many, many bad things in those lifetimes and good things, but we're here to put things right in this lifetime. This is a major opportunity. And certainly where we are now in 2024, 25, 26, this 3-year period is part of an 11-year sun cycle, where his 60% historical change is happening on the planet in this 3 years. 60% historical change is huge. And, you know, that could mean anything. It could mean anything from, you know, war to assassinations to the end of income tax, which, you know, hey, everyone would love that one. Writing off, like, international debt needs to go because it's just dragging everyone down. These are the kind of things that when we raise our consciousness, we can eliminate those programs, eliminate income taxes, eliminate the national debt, eliminate homelessness, eliminate poisonous food and poisonous water, because we're not toxic. So the outside starts to get cleaned as well. You know?
So amazing. Well, I know also that you have a live group healing and meditation platform on Patreon, which is a non-denominational meeting place where people from all walks of life can join forces to heal and meditate with a common goal for the highest good for all. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I started my Patreon channel a year ago now, it was the end of 2023. And I wanted to have a place where people could come for $5 a month and get healing. And there are some free ones on there when I first started. So if people wanted to go and look down, you know, the posts, that they can try it. And the spring equinox one on YouTube is very powerful as well. So basically, it's about 30 minutes. I do 2 live streams a month usually, and I go 1st of January, 2nd February, 3rd of March, 4th of April. So it's, you know, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. It's easy for people to remember. And then 2 weeks after that, at midday Pacific time. And we get together. I'll maybe talk for a minute and, you know, just say hi. And I open what I call the one portal, which is like a quantum healing portal, like a wind tunnel, like a black hole that people can throw their junk into. And we open the portal, we do some healing on big scale, clearing stuff out of our system. And then I close the portal and we sit for 20 minutes in silence in no mind meditation. And we just focus in our heart centers that we are living in this beautiful world without corruption, without homelessness, where everyone's needs are met. And we hold that for 20 minutes in the group. And it's a very powerful thing to do, you know, as a group. So the whole intention of my Patreon channel is, may the will of one God creator be done for the highest good of all. That's our intention. So it's a place for people to come that think as one.
Beautiful mission, that's for sure. Beautiful mission. So we will have, of course, the that in the show notes, so people that are interested can check it out. Anything, Janine, that we haven't touched upon that is exciting? I mean, you've written 5 books. We could have you over and over on this on this podcast to discuss everything. Any project that you want to highlight? Before we end?
Of course. So I'm not sure when this is going out, but on Tuesday the 17th, I'm doing a live with Meg Matthews on her page on Instagram. And I'm putting together a new podcast at the moment with 3 of my girlfriends. We're all coming from different perspectives, but we're all awake and, you know, on this level. So working on putting that together for next month. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've also got a workshop coming up on the 19th of January, which is a anti-aging to ageless. So it's a reverse aging workshop for 2 hours. It's only $99. And I'm going to be doing that with my friend Laura Giovanta. The 2 of us are going to be running that workshop on the 19th of January. So they're the main things that are coming up. But on my
awesome.
On my website, I've got audios to help people clear stuff from their DNA. I've got I do programs to help people heal PTSD, trauma, addiction, weight issues are also linked to trauma. Generally, people that are overweight, trauma related. And yeah, there's my 5 books on there, and 13 online courses. So I've even got one on there to teach people how to communicate and heal their animals, because animals are a very big, important thing to me.
Wow. Well, you've been busy, that's for sure. And I love that you've shared this. I think it's important to be open to and curious to explore. There's people that are more in tune with all this content, others are not. But I think it's a conversation that it's interesting, exciting. Definitely, I will look into your channel for sure. And I always ask, you call it things that bring you joy. My last question on every episode is, what makes you tick? And when you were talking about, how do we raise the energy? And we do it by doing things that bring us joy. At the end of the day, that's my question. It's what if we do what makes us tick, we connect to that more often, which for me was having inspiring conversations. And that's why this podcast was born almost 5 years ago now in January, now that I mentioned. Then it's an indirect way of raising our energy. So what do you do? What does make you tick? What brings you joy when you feel a little bit underplenish of your essence?
Well, I've got an amazing 3.5 pound Chihuahua dog. And so, he brings me a lot of joy. Take him out 3 times a day. I'm very blessed that I don't live far from the ocean. I like to go and walk on the ocean, and just like when I was a little girl, that was my favorite thing to do, be on the beach, picking up pebbles and bits of sea glass. And when I was in Florida 7 years ago, I was walking along Johnson Beach, is one of my favorite beaches in the world. It's on the edge of Pensacola in Florida, and I've got a lot of good friends down there. And I was walking down the beach one day, and it was always just like broken shells on the beach, a beautiful beach, white, massive sandy beaches. And I remember talking to one God at the time, saying, do you know what? It'd be really nice to find a piece of treasure on this beach instead of broken shells. And I looked down, and there was a dead seahorse,
wow,
just on the floor in front of me within seconds. And what is special about that is seahorse is my favorite animal in the world.
No, it's not easy to find.
No, and my friends who live there said, I've lived here for 21 years and never found anything.
No.
I was like, that was like, was that God one giving me a little gift, or did I manifest it? Who knows?
Well, it's if it's true that he or she lives in us and we live in them, then it's a one and only. It's intertwined in a way where it's beyond comprehension. But this has been great, Janine. I have enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience with the audience. And I definitely wish you the best of luck. And thank you for doing work with the intention of making the world a better place. That's really inspiring.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me on the show. It's been really nice to chat to you.
Likewise. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in. If you like the episode, please share, review with your friends. And until our next episode of Back to Basics. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Back to Basics. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or any of your favorite streaming platforms. This is the best gift you can give us. Join me next week for another Back to Basics conversation. And if you want to find out about other exciting things I'm working on, visit leticialatino.com. Thank you, and until the next time.